Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Williams, thanks for always being accessible. Even though we don't agree on everything, you've been very pleasant to work with, and we appreciate that, and very accessible. I know that you would be surprised if I didn't bring up the grizzly bear, so I'll bring it up first. The Fish and Wildlife Service is now 4 months overdue on the 12-month review of the state's delisting petition. And I know you've had conversation with the Wyoming Game and Fish on this. Can you provide me an update on the timeline?
Yes, Senator Lummis, very attuned to this issue because I care about it and I want to make progress. I think it is one of the success stories and a story we should be able to tell of how we have conserved and restored grizzly bears. Indeed, the Fish and Wildlife Service, we were behind on the 90-day petitions where the 3 states, Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana, petitioned the Fish and Wildlife Service to delist grizzly bears. So we were behind in finding both Montana and Wyoming's petitions to warrant further review, and we declined Idaho's petition, for which I think we are just about to be challenged on that petition. What that did, though, while we were behind in those findings, is we now go through a 12-month petition review, it's called, where we take the 90-day finding and go in deeper to develop either a proposed delisting rule or a finding that delisting isn't warranted. So we are going through that process right now diligently, and as both you and I understand, we need to do that, following the science and with care so that any solution is durable. What I don't want to see, I don't think any of us want to see, is flip-flops or delays from litigation. I want to get the rules just right.
Well, I urge you to act with vigor on this petition. The grizzly's been recovered for 20 years, and yet it's still on the list. And to me, that sort of negates the whole purpose of the Endangered Species Act when it's been acknowledged that the recovery numbers have been consistently met and exceeded since 2003, and yet this species is still listed. So I just encourage you to, act with vigor.
Senator Lummis, the irony is not lost on me of my past career on working on wolves, where in Montana we were working with Wyoming on adequate regulatory mechanisms, and now we are trying to work closely with the state of Montana to help them have the adequate regulatory mechanisms in place to be able to get to a delisting. But thank you.
Now I'm going to switch over to the critical habitat designations. And as Ranking Member Capito noted, there have been 3 different bipartisan resolutions of disapproval to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service actions. And that, I think, should put the service on notice that the Congress thinks that some revisiting of the approaches you're taking to definitions of critical habitat and the manner in which certain species are being evaluated could use some rethinking. So I just encourage you to do that. It's actually quite a thing for the Congress to pass Congressional Review Act matters and resolutions of disapproval. So to have 3 come in front of the service in such a short time, I think should give you all pause. So that said, I would like to ask something about migration corridors. There's great bipartisan interest across 11 western states for elk, mule deer, and pronghorn migration corridors. And how does the services budget request treat migration corridors?
Senator Lummis, thank you for that question, and I do recognize the overwhelming support for migration corridors. Just last week, unfortunately, I was not able to go to it, but there was a meeting in Tucson where the Deputy Secretary, Tommy Boudreau, announced funding, I think it was $4 million for migration corridors. And our budget request does build in corridors, and I can't remember the exact number for that, and I can get it to you, but I very much would believe it's important. It builds support for these really important movements. It gets to the sense of awe in migration and wildlife too. So I will get you the exact number, but I appreciate your support and think it's very important.
Yeah, no worries. We'll follow up with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank
I
you.
yield back.